Colter Shaw had his enemies. In his profession of rewards-seeking, he avoided bond enforcement, tracking down bail jumpers. But over the years, he had found more than a few men and women who emphatically did not want to be found. Nearly all rewards involving criminals were offered for information leading to their arrest or capture, with the first word of that phrase always emphasized. The last thing the authorities wanted was private cops engaging in tactical work and bringing the bad guys in zip-tied. But whether Shaw simply offered up information on the whereabouts of a fugitive or physically took him down himself, he'd been a championship college wrestler, the opponents were not pleased. And they often held grudges. Some of the more sociopathic ones had actually sent him graphic descriptions of what they intended to do when they were out of prison. One had illustrated the torture, and the drawings were surprisingly good. The incarcerated also had friends and family who roamed the land freely, often with nothing better to do than track down the man who had sent Papa or Mama or a sibling to jail. So Colter Shaw had created an early warning system of sorts. People he knew, personally or professionally, would be in touch when someone suspicious inquired about him. Which was why he was presently in his late father's office in the mountain house of his youth, working his way through 5,000 sheets of the man's notes and correspondence. He was searching for a reference to a particular individual and having zero luck. The lean 6-foot Shaw was dressed for the outdoors in black jeans, 5'11" tactical boots, and 2 tees under a sweatshirt for insulation. It was nearly summer, but this June was in March mode, drizzling, cold, and windy. None of this would have stopped him from hiking the hundreds of acres that made up the Shaw compound in the Sierra Nevada mountains, an activity that was to have been on his agenda today. But instead, he was chasing paper and coming up with nothing. He tested the coffee. It had lost its last hint of warmth, and he set the mug aside. He'd get more, a pot was in the kitchen, but not until he hit an arbitrary milestone of another half-inch of documents. Stretching, he slumped in a chair in whose back was carved the face of a brown bear, a grizzly. Young Colter had been fascinated with the bas-relief in his youth and had once done a rubbing of it, like people do on the gravestones of the famous dead. The result, on gray newsprint, was presently hanging, framed, on a wall in his home on the East Coast. He now looked around the room where he'd spent many, many hours with his eccentric father, as Ashton imparted endless rules about survival. Shaw recognized dozens of the objects and books that had absorbed his youthful attention like the chairback: maps, Native American weapons, lacquered boxes, books on politics and philosophy, paintings, one of his sister's model locomotives, a Bowie knife that his older brother and their father had forged. Some good memories and some tough ones. Then it was time to tuck the past away and return to the hunt for the threat, if indeed a threat existed. The early warning message had been ambiguous. It was from a political science professor at the Bay Area University, where his father had taught, in Berkeley, though not the famed Cal. The professor had been a student of Ashton's and was well aware of the cranky man's mission back then, and the enemies he'd made. The text the man sent read, "Colter, you should know. Someone called the university asking about Ashton and his family. Directed to me because I knew him. My assistant took the call. A woman gave the name Margaret, no last name. She knew about the compound but didn't know where it was, and was looking for it. She wouldn't leave a number or say why she was interested. Said she'd call back but never did. My assistant said the woman seemed edgy and blunt. Maybe nothing, but thought you should know." Margaret. The name meant nothing to Shaw, and as this had happened just an hour ago, he had not had a chance to pose the question to his mother, who was working in the garden. He slogged on through the documents, the process slowed by the fact that anything Ashton generated was written by hand.